Hi, I'm Riggs Zanotti.
And I'm Harold Muliati.
Welcome to Sounding Great, a podcast dedicated to you, your voice, your recordings, your audio, how you present yourself and how people perceive you. Sounding great because you can.
And we are back, and this is our premiere episode of this show, all about voiceover, voice talents, how to be better at voiceover, audio, gear, reviews, and great interviews. And speaking of great interviews, we have one today on our premiere show. We couldn't think of anybody better to ask on. He's a friend of the show, of other shows we've done, and we love Peter. Peter Baker is on. He's a world-renowned voice talent. His stuff is seen everywhere. He's currently the voice and narrator of the Epic Economist, which is on daily, gets many thousands or hundreds of thousands of views. And I always kid with him that it's a show that you want to kill yourself afterwards, but it's really full of great information. It's just all about current events. But he's been on the BBC. He has been a radio personality, TV announcer, you name it. He has done it in this world. Not to mention he's a great teacher. His master class in voiceover is excellent. He's also got classes on Audition, on voice acting. I don't know what else he's got. He's got a whole mess of other classes that he keeps adding. Great value for the prices. It's very reasonably priced, and you will not go wrong with this training. Well, without further ado, Peter Baker. Peter, how are you?
Fine, thank you, and I'm honoured to be on your first show of your new podcast.
The honour is ours.
Sounding great, what it's all about, really, isn't it? Because the oral world is one that we all communicate with, and also one that you can make an income from, as well as a voiceover, and it's great fun. Every day is different.
It is, and it's a lot of fun. Now, you've got a gig right now, which I'm wondering, are you also doing the audio editing and everything else, the video?
Oh, yes. I love doing that. And I think that if you're a voice talent, you really need to teach yourself how to do that. That's why a couple of my courses on voiceovermasterclass.com, it's about how to work Adobe Audition and also Premiere Pro, the video editing program. Because quite often, today I've had 3 of them where you're asked to synchronize up to usually a non-English video. And so you've given the English script, and it doesn't work when you've just got the time codes, and sometimes you're not even given that. So you're given the non-English film, and you're given the translation, and you've somehow got to fit it in. Well, sometimes it gets more complicated than that, and you're given a cartoon, like the Russian cartoons I had, and I had to do it mouth sync, basically, for your own voice, all the different character voices. So it's good fun. And so if you can offer that, then you're going to get that work as well. So the more you know, the more work you get.
It's a good point. And when I look at the Epic Economist, there's quite a bit of work that goes into it. Are you also putting together the part with all of the pictures and the videos and the stock footage?
They asked me to do that, and I said, no, thank you. That's a lot of work. And I really pity the poor video editors who have to do all that. There's an awful lot of footage in there. Yeah. And sometimes, as you know, in the world of television, you've got to sort of put on the screen something relevant to what the speech is about. And quite often the writer thinks of sort of general things. What do you put on the screen, for goodness sake? So it's a very difficult job. Just choosing it, let alone physically doing the job. No, I get sent the script every day, and then I put on that ridiculous voice, and which is very similar to, I did it.
The end is near.
Well, I don't know if you remember the 1970s film called Network with Peter Finch.
Yes. I'm mad as hell and won't put up with it anymore. Yep.
Exactly, yeah. So he said, well, I want you now to go and open up your window, put your head outside and say, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take any more. You know, so that's sort of the kind of feel I think quite often works well with Epic Economist. It doesn't work for the whole 15-minute video, of course, but quite often there are some very sort of angry bits in there. I mean, there's so many things that are going wrong in the world, and politicians are just feathering their own nests. It's very upsetting. It's always happened, but we've got to do something about this.
Yeah, it's not a good thing right now. And it's interesting you bring up that picture. I think that movie, Network, should be mandatory viewing for anybody right now. I think we're way there. So that's funny.
Yeah.
But no, you do a great job on the Epic Economist. It's fun, and it's not fun in terms of the content. It's a little depressing sometimes, but your performance and the voice, it's all good. It's all really good, and it's a lot of fun to listen to, and knowing you, it's even more fun.
Shall I read you what I've done today? Shall I read you? First thing, I'm doing a lot of tourist things at the moment. I think this is really interesting and there's a lot of work for voiceovers here. Because you remember even 5 years ago, you went to a museum or an art gallery or something, and you used to borrow those things that got charged up and you put the headphones on.
Yes.
And afterwards they clean them and take them back. Well, since COVID, they don't do that now anyway, but most people have got a smartphone and there are apps on there. And so that means every venue can now quite easily, without having to buy in all that hardware, just simply get the voiceovers done and join one of the tourist app things. And so there's an awful lot of work. I was doing something for the Faroe Islands this morning.
Interesting.
And something for a museum in Germany yesterday. So there's quite a few of those things. And you get pronunciation guides for Danish words that you get in the Faroe Islands. So I was doing that. So there's a lot. Aviation training. So it's nice that planes are back in the air again. So teaching people all about the snow cam techniques and what runways to use and all that kind of stuff. So you sort of learn a bit about this when you do these things. And radio adverts for the Barbados, for Republic Bank in Barbados. What else have I done? Automatic fire company in Germany. Basically, it tells you, there's an app, right, in the fire, and it tells you when to put wood into it. I mean, can you believe it? You've got technology in a fire. Isn't that
That's
weird?
amazing.
But there we go. It's a film we did there. And that was one of the examples of my English voice sort of over-voicing the German stuff that's on there already. A few Fiverr jobs and some road safety things and a podcast. So, it's been an interesting day.
Well, that brings up a good point, because a lot of people always ask this. When you talk a lot, how do you keep your voice going? How do you keep yourself...
Water.
A lot of water. Yeah.
Yes. And also, when you do the shouty stuff, the hard sell adverts, you make sure it's an illusionary shout.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you're shouting, but really you're not at all. So
Right.
it protects your voice. It's an acting shout, and so there's no volume there. It's not as if I'm actually trying to shout to anybody. So that's one way to protect it. But yeah, lots of yogurt and lots of water, basically, and try and rest when you can.
Yeah.
Well, plus the doing the acting shout prevents the dreaded overmodulation, of course, also, so that you don't look at the recording later and realize, oh no, now I'm all clipped.
Well, a handy tip there, which is, I mention in my courses as well, is to always have two recordings. It's always good to have a safety anyway for an important directed session on your headphones. But what I normally do is record on my computer at sort of normal levels, but also record on my trusty Marantz. I can't pick it up because it's wired in down there. Which is at a lower level. So if there are any nasty peaks, then hopefully the Marantz solid state recorder down there has recorded it okay. So and just use a Y split from Amazon, basically.
Yep. Yeah, that's a really good technique too, because you never know sometimes what you're recording may not be what comes out for whatever glitch that could happen.
Yes, I worry about that all the time.
And they do happen. Well, no, you use Audition a lot, and we use Audition too. And as much as I love Audition, I know sometimes the programmers at Adobe kind of mess up things a bit. Like, for example, meters that sometimes just disappear. It's like, where did my meter go? In fact, where did my wave go? I'm recording, but there's no wave file. This is not good.
There's someone watching from Adobe right now. Why is it that Premiere Pro has had the double speed at the normal pitch, right, for years, and yet we haven't got it in Audition? And that's why you need it.
I know that.
Voiceovers are needing to play things at double speed, pushing the L key on our keyboard for all the time. We're always doing that, and we have to listen to a Mickey Mouse voice. If the Premiere Pro's got it, why can't you just put it in flipping Audition?
It does oftentimes seem like it's the one hand doesn't know what the other hand's doing when it comes to these programs.
They don't. No.
They're integrated with each other, but a lot of times they lack the features that other ones have.
Yes.
I remember
Adobe Audition came up with the denoiser, didn't it? And that was stolen by Premiere Pro, so it works that way round.
Yeah.
Sorry, I spoke over you.
I remember last time you were on last time we had you on a podcast, this was actually on our eLearn Chat podcast. You were talking about the museum thing as well. You were saying that you had voiced exhibits at the Crime Museum in, I believe that was in
Vienna.
Austria.
Yes, in Vienna, Austria.
I would be really interested to hear, how your voice is at those exhibits, but how do they have you perform for the museum things? Is like how much acting is in there as opposed to just sort of straight narration?
Well, it's mostly, that particular script was mostly narration, and there were a few quotes from people, things from historical documents. So you just put on a slightly different voice when it comes to the quote, basically. It's quite easy. And I think at the other end, they put on some reverb or something like that, because it just differentiates the narration from the actual quote.
Yeah, sounds like a real fun project.
I've done loads of things. Art galleries are quite fun as well. But quite often you get sent the script and you've no idea. You're describing a picture you've not seen. So you need to go on the internet and just find what picture it is you're talking about. So, I'm an expert on that now. Here we go. That's the weird thing. We sound or have to sound like experts on everything, whether it's a tourist attraction, whether it's a museum guide, whether it's an e-learning thing for insurance or something, yet another one on insurance, or aviation like I did today on runways. So, you just got to sound like you know what you're talking about. And that's why it's important to get the right pronunciation of things.
Right.
And the way you say things. For example, on the script this morning, it said sort of Amsterdam runway 22, but it's not. It's 22. You see, you've got to say it the right way, or else you sound. We just know what he's talking about. It's not 22L. It's 22 left runway, whatever.
The next thing I was going to ask was, what type of project have you found requires the most research for getting the voiceover right, getting your performance right, getting your pronunciation right, and that sort of thing?
Well, it's probably one of the ones that have many foreign names in, like the Danish ones I had this morning. And quite often when you have, say, the Faroe Islands, which is owned by Denmark, but actually they have their own language on there called Faroese, which isn't quite Danish, then the client is always right. So you can't just go to forvo.com or how'd you say or whatever to find out how to pronounce the names. And you have to get a proper pronunciation guide. For only today, I was talking to the production company about the best way of doing this. And folks, if you're a voiceover and you have a lot of foreign words or words that you aren't familiar with, you really got to insist on getting a good pronunciation guide, and not just links to all sorts of various things, all those awful things on YouTube where they're like 2 minutes long just to tell you one word, and it's full of padding. I am so glad you are on my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. And now I'm sure you'd like to know how to say this word. No, just tell me the word. But of course they don't, do they? So you need to insist on getting a good pronunciation guide, and the best way of doing it, and you have to train your clients to do this, not to do it fast, nice and slow. And the ideal way is to have one file, not separate files, so it saves them time as well, and highlight the words that they're going to say in the script. So you know exactly the words coming up, one file, and they say it 3 times. So you say the first word, Storhaven, and then Storhaven, 3 syllables, you know that, right? And then Storhaven afterwards. So that's the way to do it. And then you go on to the next one. That's the best way. You've got to split it up into syllables. And when you do really complicated languages, well, for me, like Russian or Polish, you've got to do that. It just doesn't make sense. It's just a mass of sound unless you get it split up that way. So you've really got to ask your client, or else it will just be a really difficult and impossible job, and you'll be forever remaking it.
Now, do you find that German is difficult because of all the compound words that are just very long?
I like German. I worked in Vienna at Blue Danube Radio for many years. So not for me personally. I studied it at school, so I find German very, very easy. I don't even ask for a pronunciation guide
that's good.
For German ones. French is okay as well. Maybe in American schools you don't learn German. Or...
Not that much anymore. In the old days, if you were a chemistry major, I'm talking back, I think the last time they really started teaching was in the 70s. And if you were an engineering major or a chemistry major, biology major, some of the books were still written in German in those days. So, but that was back 60s and 70s. Now, they don't teach German that much. They don't even teach language anymore in most schools. Very little.
No, same in Europe, really, really weird, particularly in the United Kingdom. It's such a shame because, languages are fun and they help you communicate. I know practically when you go on holiday, everyone speaks English, so why do we bother? You get that. But it does help you enormously. It really does, particularly in our jobs as voiceovers, and understanding language and how the structure of it is. And, we can make a good guess as to how the word sounds without even looking it up.
Right.
Just by looking at the letters. Is it IE or EI and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and I suppose on the subject of how much foreign language people tend to learn in school in this country, there's that old joke where if you speak 6 or more languages, you're a polyglot. If you speak 2, you're bilingual. If you speak 1, you're an American.
Very good. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
It's really been that case forever. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, many Americans don't ever leave the country in their lifetime, isn't it? Like 65%.
That they don't even leave their state.
Really?
Or even I've known people who've never left their cities. It's interesting.
Wow.
It's we're not a traveling country for some odd reason. They do travel overseas to a certain point, but not ever. Some people just never do. It's interesting. Now, how many languages have you learned during your life so far?
Just French and German, basically. I could have taken Italian at school. A little bit of Russian was taught at the school. And we did Latin, actually. We did 2 years of Latin. That was compulsory when I went to grammar school. So when I was like 10, 11, 12, you had to learn Latin. And that was very useful because it's sort of almost Italian. So it helps me with my Italian jobs. And I've got loads of clients in Italy. So that sort of helps me, again, just to speed read it and understand what the words mean just from their roots.
That's interesting. Now, you mentioned, I think at the beginning, when we had some problems getting your mic hooked up because of our vMix.
Yes, we're there now. I think you're listening.
But we got it working. Now, which mic are you on? You said Neumann, I think.
Oh, this is just a TLM 103. But this isn't my voice booth. Obviously, there's a window there. That's the outside world there. So this is where I do my editing and video editing and things like that. And I'm on one of these desks that go up and down. I had real back problems a few months ago. I was absolutely agony. Went to hospital, all that stuff. So they said I was sitting down too much. I was compressing the spine. So now I've got one of these desks that go up and down. So I'm in the up mode at the moment. So I could lift this thing and go all the way down. It's really, I won't do that now or else it will topple things over. But that's helped an awful lot here. But my voice booth is next door and that's got a Neumann U87 in. But Neumann seems to like my voice. I don't know why. It just makes it sound nice.
It's interesting, but you're right. You're right. The Neumanns are really good, but they're very sensitive. And if you have the right voice, they sound great. Yes,
they do. But you do need a decent pop filter or a double one. Yep. In fact, for some scripts where there's a lot of P's in, you have to be really close. I have quadruple. I have 2 double pop filters. Yeah, that's the only way of doing it, really, when you're really, really close.
I almost never use a pop filter. Every so often I'll put one on.
Really? Wow.
It depends how close I am to a mic. Like here I'm on the 416, the Sennheiser, and no pop filter. There is a pop filter you can buy for this, and I've got to go find it, but I rarely pop on this thing. When I'm on, I don't have the U87, I've got the Warm Audio WA87, which is a replica. And it does a pretty good job. It's a $600 replica. I got it about a month or 2 ago. It's not bad, and it's not that sensitive. But if I'm on some other ones that are quote unquote Neumann sort of lookalikes, or even I've got a Neumann TLM 102. I've got the 102 and the 103 are very similar in sound. I don't pop on that one, but I have to be careful. Because that one is very sensitive again. The Neumanns are very sensitive. But they do have a nice sound. They've got that nice bassy sort of sound. And for your voice, it probably sounds absolutely great. And,
yes, I'm very lucky, yes. And also the digital interface box as well. I mean, I have here a Steinberg UR22. But in the booth, I've got a Focusrite, the latest Mark III one. And the air button really makes a big difference, particularly on the Neumann mic. the air button basically electronically replicates the old analog vowel sound of the 50s and 60s.
Interesting.
So it's music, but it works for voice. It really makes a difference. It's difficult to describe how it does it. Just sounds richer and smoother for some reason.
Nice. Is that the new Scarlett?
Yes, the Focusrite Scarlett Solo.
The Solo.
Yeah. Well, you could get the dual if you want to, but I've only got one mouth, so a Solo is fine for me.
Yeah. I don't have a.
I've in Britain,
And we're sort of weird here because I'm only one mouth for the most part, and I've got the Scarlett 18i20 like I need it, but every so often I'll hook up 3 or 4 mics just to do a test, or I'll put them on a mixer.
Yes,
and I think Harold's also got. He's not using a Focusrite; he's using a Zoom.
I have the
that has 8, right? 6 or 8.
I have the Zoom R24 at home. It's it's an interface. I guess it's sort of a mixer. It you can put inline effects and that sort of thing. I believe that one has 8 XLR inputs.
What do you have on the one at work? 4?
That one is I think 2 XLR and 2 quarter inches.
And I wanted to get the Marantz, but they didn't have it when I was looking at Sweetwater. It wasn't in stock. So I wound up getting a Tascam DR, what was that? 500, 100? I can't remember the number.
Yeah.
Haven't really used it much yet, but we're going to be doing some of the same thing. It does the same thing. It gives you that. It'll record 2 tracks. It'll record a normal and a backup track a lot lower.
Yes.
Just in case.
That's very clever. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, some of the podcast machines around are amazing because when I was researching for the podcast course on voiceovermasterclass.com, and also there's a book version of it out now called Podcast Production. Yeah. But inside there, I sort of researched all the latest stuff, and there's some amazing machines out now, aren't there, from Rode? And the Zoom ones are flipping amazing for the price. And you get the packages with it all in there. You can have your own podcast studio for a very reasonable amount. And it's all in there, and it's all works together. You don't have to look at separate wires.
And you probably remember the Aphex line. The Aphex 230 was the voice channel. It was very famous in its day.
Yes.
And now they have the Aphex Studio channel, which is the later version of it. But I was wondering why Rode on their podcast, on the what's it called? The
Rodecaster.
The Rodecaster. It's like a tongue twister for me. The Rodecaster. Using a Procaster. Hey. But anyway, that one comes with all the Aphex effects built in, like the aural exciter and the big bottom.
Yeah.
And I was going, why would Aphex do that? Of course, I learned later Aphex was acquired by Rode.
By the company, yes. They did. Yeah,
that makes sense. But Aphex, you don't see a lot of gear anymore. When you look around, they're not selling that much gear. I think they've just rolled it right in as software now. It's interesting.
Yes. It's whatever they make the money on, really, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. But the Aphex Studio channel has a great sound to it. It's a unique sound, and they do nothing different, really. The big bottom and the aural exciter are really playing with your tube. That's all it does. It plays with the tube to give you either a little more grit or a little bit more highs, and it does it's a nice job. It's fun to work with that and see what you can get out of it.
Well, there was a story going around that there was nothing inside the aural exciter box at all, was it? You sort of smash it open, it's just wires that go in, wires that come out. It wasn't doing anything. It was all psychological. It's a bit like sort of taking sweets instead of medical tablets that make you feel better.
That's funny.
That sounds fantastic. Now the aural exciter is in. Yeah.
That's right. It would not surprise me.
Sounds like a hit record now.
And the guy who ran Aphex, I can't remember what his name is. He was I think he has Spanish last name. I think he had a really good sense of humor because he calls it the big bottom, and people immediately go, "The big bottom? Like you mean like somebody's ours?" No, it's the big bottom. And then of course the aural exciter. People go, "What does he do with the aural exciter?" No, aural, AURAL. What's that? What's that? Yeah.
Crazy.
So he probably had a blast just creating that thing and doing that. Well, Peter, you've got some new training. You just mentioned the Premiere training.
Yes.
And that again, that's valuable for a lot of people, especially a lot of voice talents are very good at voice. A lot don't know how to do their own editing. Many are learning how to do editing. but many don't know much about video either. So other than some of them do podcasts, but these are, like you mentioned right up front, these are really important tools to add to your arsenal, to be able to do a little bit of editing and everything, just in case you have to.
Of course. And you're quite often asked to do a voiceover for a video that they've done a rough voice on anyway, or nothing. So you always sent videos. So rather than just open it in your VLC or your media player or something like that, just put it into Premiere, and then you can try your voice against it before you record it as audio only. But for syncing, you've got to do it that way, for synchronization of your voice to the video, and then the client is really happy. And even if he or she hasn't asked to do it, sync it up and send it to them saying, look, I've done all the work. You just stick it on your timeline and they'll love you for it. And you've gone the extra mile and you'll get more work. And you've had to do it anyway, really. So yes, to learn a video editing program is really important. And if you don't want to pay for Adobe's version, there are plenty of good free ones out there. There's Hit Film Express. It's not bad. DaVinci is free as well. You can, donate to it if you want. So there are some excellent ones. So they're all very, very similar. So in that training course you just showed there, we do explain about all of them. And there's a separate one on green screen because I don't know if you can see behind me. It's gone now. Up there. Can you see it? I'm pointing to the green up here. That's a green screen that comes down in here. And so basically,
I've got one right behind me. So does Harold.
There we go. Yeah. So I can just disappear into another world. So you may want to, as well as offering voiceover services, offer InVision services. And over there, I've got a little camera, 4K camera, and a little auto cue. And I can run it with my mouse. So you can sit. So you don't even need anybody to run the teleprompter, basically. You can just do it all yourself, which is great fun. So there's a course I do called the Green Screen Challenge that tells you all about how to do that. So here we are. Create your own green screen home studio. There we go. So that's an interesting course. You can see how I set it up here.
And I
thought it was impossible because normally, interesting that there's a big studio down the road, which I used to hire because I thought I could never do it in here. It's tiny. But for the course, I did it, and I carry on doing my green screen in here because why should I hire the studio?
And also the software has become so, and the software nowadays that comes with a lot of the recording and everything is really good. It really creates a great key without having to do a lot of work.
Yes, the one in Adobe is quite good, although there are some lighting conditions which I have used another one. There's a company called New Blue, and they make one called Chroma Key Pro. And I find that excellent, really, really, really good. And if you've got a really difficult lighting condition or somebody with really fuzzy hair or something like that, that helps, and it's better than the one that you get in Premiere. But you can import it in, and you can see it in Premiere. You don't have to export it and do it in a separate program. It's like a third-party plugin.
And you said one thing a couple of minutes ago, like you said, if you can add that syncing, or if you can add something. That's something I've told people in voiceover and in other areas all the time. Don't nickel and dime people. If you can add a little value and it doesn't kill you, it will add so much more revenue to your work later because people will want you to work with them. It'll make them excited because, there's nothing worse than nickel and diming somebody. Then they start feeling like, I don't know if I want to work with that person anymore.
No, well, that's why it's best not to have an agent. I shouldn't say that in your land of agents there, but I haven't had an agent for about 25 years now, and I have not looked back. But usually someone who is trying to get as much money as possible will try their best to get the money, not caring about the relationship. And I think the relationship is very important to get repeat business. You want repeat business again and again. The more you can offer, the better. So for many of my clients who haven't got English as a first language, I always do a proof check and say before I record it, are you sure you want me to say this? That you haven't put a verb in here or something. It doesn't make sense. Tell me what you're trying to say. I will rewrite it for you. It won't take me long. And so if you offer that as part of the service as well, again, they will love you for it and be a repeat customer, which is really good.
Now, interestingly enough, on the Epic Economist, you take the point of being in the United States. You're talking as if you are here. Now, has anybody ever commented on, but wait, isn't he British?
Yes, isn't he British? I know. Yeah, I got stuck in America. Well, I could have been. I mean, I've been to America many times, and I could be there. But that's the script I'm asked. I did query it, but they said, no, you've got to sound like you're in America. So, in fact, even the main scriptwriter actually is not in America. But
that's funny.
Go into that now. But yeah, I know. It should be against the Trades of Descriptions Act of 1973, shouldn't it? Or something like that.
Yeah. Well, Peter, we are just about out of time. I think we've been out of time for a while, but I guess we have to cut it short. As always, a pleasure seeing you. You're a wealth of knowledge, and as always, for all you people watching, if you are watching, has anybody been in the chat room, by the way?
I noticed people have been watching us on Facebook,
okay,
but
people have been watching, but nobody's been
comments.
talking. People are shy on these chat rooms. But anyway, for people watching this now or watching it later on, Peter's training is really good. I've recommended it to many friends, and they've bought it, and they really enjoyed it. They thought it was great, and they learned a lot from it. And and believe me, when I started going into voiceover, it was hard to find any really good information. It's like you just had to figure it out. Well, and that makes it a lot longer process.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because I bought quite a few books on voiceover years ago, and they were all full of just anecdotes, you know. I'm never going to find an agent in an elevator in LA, am I? You know, so it was just all full of that. And, you know, oh, great, that's a good like story. Give me some information. So that's why my stuff is full of information and tips and tricks and all that kind of stuff. And you make your own luck. You don't want to know about other people's luck. You need to make your own luck. And I'm forever trying to update the courses. I've just this week, updated the one on Fiverr. Because, you know, if you're starting out in voiceover, the Fiverr site, which used to have such a terrible name, you're not doing a voiceover for $5, of which you only keep $4, are you? But of course you don't, because now you can put in the extras and all this stuff. And I haven't done a Fiverr job for under $100 for many years now. But yeah, so that site's updated, and I'm in Fiverr Pro as well, which everyone should try and get into.
We just applied for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, from what we've seen with Fiverr, you only have to do one thing, the very first one, for $5, and then
I think that's true. Yes.
And then you're done. You're done. Then you can go back to your normal price.
You can indeed, but it's the extras that way you get it. The trick is that in media, virtually everything is urgent, isn't it? So if you're charging for a tiny script that nobody would ever want, you're going to charge for the word count, but then it's going to be same day delivery, an extra $75 or something like that, and people will pay it. I want it today. I want it now.
Yep.
So that's when they realize that they're going to pay the same. And the great thing with Fiverr, if you're starting out, you don't need your own website. You can just create your profile on there, have a really nice, interesting thumbnail, and just put the keywords in, and people will find you that way. And you don't need to invoice people. You don't need to chase people for money, because Fiverr will get the money before you start the work. So it's safe in the bank.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. You said you had a course on Fiverr.
Yes, it's on the Voiceover Masterclass, but it's an old one, so that's why I've just redone it. There it is, their new course, how to become a top-selling voiceover on Fiverr. So
that's great.
I'm quite proud of that, really, because particularly because when I first joined Fiverr, there were many of my friends, voiceover artists, who said, "How dare you do this? You know, you're reducing our income by selling prices and all this." But you know, Fiverr aren't stupid, and they realize that if they wanted to have quality people, we need to charge reasonable prices like we do outside. And that's how it's happened, basically. Now they've given us, in the structure of the Fiverr gig, basically, that you can charge decent amounts of money, and it's all very professional.
Yeah, it's great. Well, Peter, as always, a pleasure seeing you. I'm glad you're doing well, and you've got some great gigs, and I guess you sleep eventually sometime during your day, right?
Well, yeah, that's another book I've written, actually. Sleep Power on Amazon. I've written a book about sleep, because I've always been interested in sleep. And I've just sort of collected things and read lots of articles about it over the years. And so that's just come out now, but it's a bit of fun.
Is that on Amazon?
Yes, it is.
I'll buy that. I've always been interested in sleep.
How to get better sleep and to supercharge your life. Yep. There we go.
Sleep makes all the difference in the world.
It does. It's really, really important. And it's also, they say time is the great healer, but sleep is as well. It's amazing how many ailments can get, cured or lessened, both physical and mental, by decent sleep.
Totally.
It's really
and how many people are afflicted by lack of sleep?
By lack of.
Oh, I know, exactly. Yes. And particularly going through time zones and all that. Talking about pilots, as we were before.
Oh,
yeah,
exactly.
Pity of those people.
It's a tough one.
I worked night shifts on my first radio station. That was just horrible. We're not meant to, as human beings, be awake when it's dark
those circadian
outside.
Cycles really get in the way.
Yes.
Anyway, Peter, appreciate you coming on. And again, we'll have links to all your training beneath in the show notes. Please do check out Peter's stuff. It's really good. We get nothing for saying that. We really believe in what he's doing. We wouldn't push him if we didn't.
Thank you.
And Peter, we'll be back in touch soon.
Great. And let's hope the series goes well.
Thank you much.
Sounding great.
Oh, we have a great start. So have a good one, Peter, and thanks for coming on. And if you're watching, we hope you enjoyed it. Give us a thumbs up. I'm not really sure what that does, but people seem to like that. But do subscribe, because we do need subscribers, especially on the YouTube one, because without that, we can't get that name. So you can just go youtube.com/soundinggreat. It's not available until we get 100 subscribers. It's what they do.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have to get 100. Then you can get a name. Other than that, you get this 86894200800 800 42 number ID. So it's kind of hard for people to remember that one. So anyway, well, have a good one, everyone. We will see you next week on Sounding Great. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Marching.
Wow, great graphics.
And